There was no way until you made one. And grace upon grace, hallelujah. And even though I don't deserve it, you did it. And even though I couldn't earn it, you give it. Who am I that you keep me on your mind? God, I'm just grateful for you. God, I'm just grateful for you. And all my life you've been right here by my side. God, I'm just grateful for you. God, I'm just grateful for you. Holy, holy, there's only one. I give you glory for all that you've done. And even though I don't deserve it, you did it. And even though I couldn't earn it, you give it. You keep me on your mind. God, I'm just grateful for you. And God, I'm just grateful for you. And all my life you've been right here by my side. God, I'm just grateful for you. And God, I'm just grateful for you. Yeah. Who am I that you keep me on your mind? God, I'm just grateful for you. God, I'm just grateful for you. And all my life you've been right here by my side. God, I'm just grateful for you. God, I'm just grateful for you.
Chance after chance after chance, and I'm giving all that I am, 'cause you gave me chance after chance after chance, and I'm lifting both of my hands, 'cause you gave me chance after chance after chance, and I'm giving all that I am, 'cause you gave me chance after chance after chance.
Oh, who am I that you keep me on your mind? God, I'm just grateful for you. God, I'm just grateful for you. Yeah. All my life you've been right here by my side. God, I'm just grateful for you. God, I'm just grateful for you. Who am I that you keep me on your mind? God, I'm just grateful for you. God, I'm just grateful for you. Yeah. All my life you've been right here by my side. God, I'm just grateful for you. God, I'm just grateful for you. And I survived and I'm here to testify. God, I'm just grateful for you. God, I'm just grateful for you. I'm alright if they say I'm out of my mind. God, I'm just grateful for you. God, I'm just grateful for you.
This one is for the fathers and all the father figures, stepfathers, grandfathers, godfathers. Whether by blood or by choice, we give voice to our gratitude for the fathers, the heroes the mentors and anchors, the coaches and counselors, teachers and trainers, the men who shape us and show us the definition of faithful and strong and wise, the fathers, always by our side, with us and for us, steady and courageous, ready to inspire and encourage and give us a word of wisdom, a voice of reason in season and out. There is no doubt where their strength comes from, what their hope is set on, who their eyes are fixed on, the fathers, the embodiment of legacy, humility, integrity, needed and necessary, dependable and trustworthy. The fathers, the men who lead and love and believe in us even when we don't. The fathers, the men who nurture and point us toward purpose, almost bigger than life, but always down to earth. The fathers, the men who give guidance, direction, and keep everything in perspective, making room for us to grow. We may never know the prayers, the tears, the sacrifices that fathers make on our behalf, yet still find time to play and laugh and rejoice in the day that the Lord has made. The fathers, the heroes, we honor you today.
When all I see is the battle, you see my victory. When all I see is the mountain, you see a mountain moved. And as I walk through the shadow, your love surrounds me. There's nothing to fear now, for I am safe with you. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. And if you are for me, who can be against me? Yeah. For Jesus, there's nothing impossible for you. When all I see are the ashes, you see the beauty. Yeah. When all I see is the cross, God, you see the empty tomb. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. An almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. An almighty fortress, oh, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. An almighty fortress.
Who am I that the highest King would welcome me? I was lost, but He brought me in. Oh, His love for me. Oh, His love for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Realized He has ransomed me, His grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, He died for me. Who the Son sets free, who is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who You say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who You say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who You say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who You say I am. Oh, I am who You say I am. Who the Son sets free, who is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am.
Not forsaken. I am who You say I am. You are for me, not against me. No, I am who You say I am.
I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who You say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who You say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who You say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who You say I am. Oh, I am who You say I am. Yes, I am who You say I am. Who the Son sets free, who is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am.
I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. And I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah.
Good morning, church. Thank you so much for joining us. It's always an honor to lead you in worship. Go ahead and take a seat.
There's a practice in Japan that involves piecing together broken ceramic, using gold or silver as a glue, or to replace a missing piece. The thought is that the broken are reminders for us that there is beauty to our shattering. We can still be made whole. We can do this by keeping our pasts close, by making our scars gold.
Good morning. Happy Father's Day. Seriously, happy Father's Day. Man, to the men in the room that are dads, what would we do without you? So you play such an important role in our lives. Guidance and presence and kindness and discipline. I can tell you my dad was such a massive piece of my story, still is. Passed away quite a few years ago, but what a gift the dads are. So I just want to take a minute and say happy Father's Day to you. I'm so grateful for the dads in the room and the way that you're guiding your kids in such beautiful ways. So if you don't know me, my name is Rebecca, one of the teaching pastors here at The Rock. If this is your first time here, I just want to say welcome. I'm really glad that you found your way in the room. And we are in the book of Nehemiah. And the book of Nehemiah is a really interesting book because it talks at great length and with depth about the role of leaders within a community and also the role of the community and how those two groups work together to move people towards health. And so just to catch us up quickly, if you haven't been here, this morning we're going to be in chapters 5 and 6 of the book of Nehemiah. And basically, quick recap for you. Nehemiah is just an ordinary dude. He's not a prophet. He's not a priest. He's not super holy and spiritual. He's just a guy, and he just happens to find himself in a position of power in the Persian Empire. He's a cupbearer to the king, which means he's a trusted leader in the realm, and he's in proximity to power, and he's earned a voice in the kingdom. And he gets news that back home, where he's from and the people of God live in Jerusalem, the whole city is in ruins. The gates have been burned, and the people have kind of lost their sense of identity and of safety, and it burdens Nehemiah. He's overwhelmed by it. So what he does is he takes it in prayer to God, and he spends 4 months praying about this burden, about what's happening back home, and that the wall around the city is destroyed. And he's wondering maybe what God would have for him. And so that burden that's invisible gets an opportunity to become public and to be made visible. And so the king offers Nehemiah leave and permission to go back home to Jerusalem to sort of lead out a rebuilding project so that the people of God can really start to see a newness created within their midst. And so chapter 3 of Nehemiah really shows this rebuilding project. Everybody has a section, everybody has a role, everybody has a part. There's nobody on the outside just watching the work, yeah? And then chapter 4 shows us that there's this external opposition, and it's loud. There's mockery and accusations, and there's resistance from people that don't want things to change. They're benefiting from a broken system, and they like it to stay broken. Now in chapters 5 and 6, the focus shifts quite dramatically because the tension is no longer outside the work. The tension is inside the community that's doing the work. All right, everyone tracking? So let me pray for us, and we're going to dive in to chapters 5 and 6. God, I want to thank you so much for this day. I thank you for a pause in our yearly rhythm to just acknowledge dads and the work that they do. I pray for every single person that stands in the gap as a father who dads the way that you would lead them. God, I just pray that they would have a day today where they can just feel appreciated and feel seen and feel valued, God, by this community, by their families, by those that they parent. And so I just want to say thank you to those men. And God, I thank you for the way that you sustain them and the way that you help guide them to lead others. I just pray for this word this morning. It's a tough one, God. This is a tough chapter on leadership. It's a tough chapter on what happens within the walls. And so I pray that you would anoint me with your spirit to speak this well, to articulate it clearly, that it would land softly and kindly. And I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So, up until this point in the narrative, our enemies have been really easy to identify. We've had some external pressure and some external resistance with our buddies Tobiah and Sanballat, which we talked about last week. There's just a bunch of external noise and nonsense happening. But in Nehemiah 5, that shifts, because the most dangerous threat to what God is building is no longer outside the work, it's inside the community. So before I even get into this message, I want to take a minute and sort of talk about how timing can create assumptions. And so I want to be very clear about this piece. Many of you know that this is one of my final sermon series that I'll be preaching at The Rock, that Pastor Matthew and I have felt God's calling to leave at the end of the summer and set another table in the city in which we'll partner together with The Rock and do some great things in our city. But because this passage that I'm preaching on today talks at length about leadership, it talks about conflict and burden and community health, it would be very, very easy for you to take this as maybe a subtle commentary on my departure. And I want to be crystal clear that it isn't. I wrote this message months and months ago before making the decision to step out into the calling that God's had for Matthew and I. And so I'm not preaching my story this morning. I'm preaching the book of Nehemiah. Capiche? Okay. I love this chapter so much because Nehemiah shows us something so very important, that every relationship, every community that you're part of, every work culture that you find yourself sitting in, every single one of those dynamics, we have to learn that healthy people of faith don't just confront opposition outside of those relationships and work cultures and church communities. They actually have to find a way to address what's happening inside the community. So if this text challenges us today, which I hope it does, let's let it challenge us because it's scripture and not because we are trying to read the lines between the lines of maybe my own story and my own journey. So the idea that the most dangerous threat to what God is building is no longer outside in the world, it's inside the community. It's a little tough for us to process sometimes because it's one thing to have opposition from the outside. It's expected almost. I mean, you anticipate the naysayers and the work that God's called you to, but it's another thing entirely when that fracture begins to show up within the community. I want to say this very carefully because it's not just an ancient leadership problem. It's a deeply pastoral problem, and it's a really personal one for me. Most of you guys know that I do hold a doctorate in church leadership, and so much of my final project and my work in my doctoral studies was on navigating church leadership tension. And so the title of my dissertation was A Pathway to Restoration, Participating in Redemption, because I highly, highly believe that no matter what the fracture is within the walls of the community, within the walls of your marriage, within the walls of your friendship, within the walls of your workplace, I absolutely, consistently believe in a pathway to redemption. I believe that is who our God is. I believe that is what the gospel preaches, and that's the one that I'm going to get real loud about today because I'm very passionate about this. I dedicated years of study to this piece. I think I've spent a lot of time thinking about what it looks like for communities to stay healthy, to stay honest, to stay accountable. And so for me, I think what repair looks like when people are acknowledging the fractures within the walls, repair looks pretty clear. There's some solid restoration pathways available for people that want to own and be held accountable for the work within the walls, right? People are going to experience hurt, they're going to experience disappointment, and they're going to experience brokenness. You've experienced it in your relationships, you're experiencing it in your workplace, and you'll probably experience it within the church. And so Nehemiah presses right into that space quite uncomfortably because it shows us that even though Nehemiah is like leading out, it's God-led, this rebuilding project, there is internal brokenness that can show up right in the midst of what God is rebuilding. So even among God's people, injustice can surface. Even under good leadership, distraction and distortion can creep in. And Nehemiah cannot ignore it. He doesn't spiritualize it. He doesn't protect the appearance of unity at the expense of truth. What he does is he confronts it out loud and with boldness. And so Nehemiah 5 opens very honestly, and it's jarring. I think because we really are expecting more opposition from outside. It is the natural bend as you read through the narrative. Just as a reader, as an audience, you're like, yeah, this isn't over yet. I'm sure there's still more tension ahead. There's probably going to be more resistance to the wall. There's going to be more Tobiah nonsense and loud noise. But instead, we don't see enemies at the gate. Instead, we start to see them within inside the community. And so the text tells us that the people begin to cry out against one another. It says this in Nehemiah 5. For there were those who said, with our sons and our daughters, we are many. We must get grain so that we may eat and stay alive. There were also those who said, gosh, we're having to pledge our fields and our vineyards and our houses in order to get grain during this famine. And there were those who said, we are having to borrow money on our fields and on our vineyards to pay the king's tax. Okay, so what we have here is people are starting to cry out. They're starting to grumble. They're saying, hey, we don't have food. We're having a really hard time surviving. We are mortgaging our fields and our homes just to survive. We are having to lose our children into debt and servitude just to pay off the taxes. And so it's important that we don't really miss what's happening here. What's happening is that the rebuilding of the wall is going forward. We're not coming down off the wall. We're going to finish. We're going to keep digging. We're going to keep doing it. But the people inside the wall are starting to break down under the weight and the pressure of this project. So this isn't simply just like a disagreement. This isn't people having hurt feelings. This is not people being overly sensitive. There is a massive and serious economic crisis unfolding. Some families cannot afford food. And some have mortgaged their land to survive, and some are borrowing money to pay taxes, right? And so while all of this is happening, wealthier members within the community are actually benefiting. They're profiting from those in their destruction. So, in other words, the problem isn't just that people are struggling. The problem is that some people are benefiting because others are struggling. So the wall is going up. The wall is going to be built. But the most vulnerable people are paying the highest price within the community of this rebuilding project. And Nehemiah gets livid. He is furious about this. He's angry about it because God's people were never, ever, ever meant to just build a future by crushing those who are working alongside them. And I love, love, love that Nehemiah does not minimize this, not even a little bit. He doesn't spiritualize it. He doesn't say, hey, I want everyone just to stay positive during this rebuilding season. Instead, he actually gets so angry. He gets irate. And I love this, and the reason I love it so much is because anger is not always destructive. I think sometimes anger is what happens when love refuses to normalize injustice within a relationship, within a work culture, within a church culture, within any community where you're dealing with people. So Nehemiah does something fascinating. He just names it. He confronts the leadership. He confronts the officials and the nobles, and he basically just says out loud, what you guys are doing is not great. It's not right. It's poor leadership. And he starts to call out exploitation. He calls out interest, that they're charging the most vulnerable. He starts to call out the fact that they're rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem while simultaneously tearing down the people living within it. And it's a problem. And then he does something very, very important. He appeals in this speech to the nobles and to the officials to their shared identity. Basically, he says, hey, we're brothers. We're family. We were all redeemed from slavery together. God has called us his people, and he talks about the things that align and that unify rather than divide and harm. And he asks them, why are we acting like this towards one another? Why are we treating each other this way? This appealing to shared identity is chef's kiss kind of leadership. It is the best. You know you're dealing with a good leader who can kind of stay above the fray and the noise and the chaos. And man, if Nehemiah does anything, it just displays exceptional leadership. And the response from the officials and the leaders and the nobles is really telling. Here's what the text says in Nehemiah 5:8. It says, they were silent, and they could not find a word to say. Now, I think they are silent not because they are confused. I don't think they need a minute to process what's happening here. They're silent because they have been confronted. And I think we can probably all relate to a moment in our own stories where somebody confronts us and the only thing that's standing between us is truth. And most often, you're silenced by truth. When you're confronted by your own failure, when you're confronted with your own weakness, when you're even confronted with the impact, even though your intention was something different, but when somebody names an impact that you've had on them and you're confronted with it, it's a moment. And you find yourself silent. And so Nehemiah does not rush past this silence. It's uncomfortable. Let's sit in it for a minute. He doesn't fill the silence. He doesn't soften the silence. He doesn't move on too quickly so everybody can just feel better and feel peaceful. He lets it sit. Because sometimes silence is not emptiness, it's awareness. And sometimes we have to sit with the truth that's been confronting us. And so there's this moment where the truth lands and it's undeniable. There's no room to change the narrative here because it just is what it is. And so right here, in the middle of chapter 5, something really lovely and beautiful and hopeful and good happens. These leaders, they listen. They hear that truth, and then they own it. They take it in. They don't defend their actions. There's no pushback. They sit in that silence. They take stock of the truth, and then these nobles and these officials who are greatly benefiting from a really broken system, they step back and they repent. And it's astounding to see that kind of humility represented within the leadership. And so what they do is they restore, which I love. They restore what was taken. They start to release the burden that they've placed on the people within the walls, and they make it right. So this is worth us taking a note of. Whether this is in your marriage or your friendships that have tension or conflict, within a work culture, any kind of space that you're dealing with, because this moment from these leaders, it's not just emotional regret. It is not just them saying oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. All of a sudden, behaviors are changing and patterns are being interrupted and something is shifting. And Nehemiah does not treat this lightly at all. As a leader, he has now confronted leaders. Those leaders have owned their mistakes. They have moved forward in course correcting and being held accountable and restoring what they have broken. And so what Nehemiah doesn't do is he doesn't say, okay, sweet, this is fantastic. Let's just get back to rebuilding the wall. He slows the whole moment down and he anchors it deep, deep into accountability. And he models what it looks like for leaders to lead differently. He refuses to let his position benefit him in any personal way. He refuses to accumulate more at the expense of others, and he actually starts to absorb the cost. He sacrifices so that others don't have to carry it. And what you see in Nehemiah is something that I think is really rare in any type of leadership, any corporation, even in leading your home. I think it's rare because I think a leader who understands that rebuilding something external means nothing if the internal culture is still broken and people are still hurting. You cannot fix what's broken outside if you are willing to tolerate all that's broken inside. And I think that's where this begins to press in on us as followers of Jesus. Because Nehemiah 5 is not just about this ancient injustice that's happening, right? It's about what happens when people who are trying to follow God do so together. This kind of thing begins to crop up. Nehemiah is trying to show us something that we cannot ignore, and that is that the strength of a community is not just measured by what it can build outside. It's measured by what it's willing to confront inside and deal with and own and create pathways for restoration. Every single community that is trying to follow Jesus, every single individual that is trying to follow Jesus, every church, every team, every family of faith eventually has to ask themselves the same kinds of questions that Nehemiah 5 forces us to ask as a community that follows Jesus. Not because something is inherently wrong, but because anything that God builds that we want to see remain healthy has to stay honest in the middle of it. And so I'm going to ask us this question. These are questions I've been sitting with for months in my own life. Are we paying attention to the weight that we are placing upon one another? Not just what we're accomplishing together, what vision we're reaching together, but how we carry one another while we do this work. Are there places where pressure is being unintentionally felt more than care? Are there places where we assume strength instead of offering support? And are we willing to notice that before it becomes this massive fracture within the walls? Nehemiah 5 reminds me that brokenness inside a community rarely announces itself loudly at first. It usually surfaces as burden, as strain, as exhaustion, as quiet survival language. And we have to pay attention to that to remain healthy as a community. In the text, nobody says like, hey, we are being exploited. Excuse me. Hi, I just want to note that this is awful leadership. Nobody's loud about it. They start by saying, hey, we're just trying to make it. Man, we're just trying to survive. Man, I'm feeling really tired. I am exhausted. It's this kind of narrative that's happening. And I think that's why Nehemiah makes such a fantastic pastor, not just a leader. But because before injustice ever gets named, Nehemiah is starting to feel it. He's just pastoring his people in such a way that he can sense the burden that they're carrying. And so long before it becomes a confrontation, it becomes this burden that people are carrying in silence. And so Nehemiah listens to it. And he doesn't rush the project. He doesn't treat the wall like it's so much more important than the people. He slows down long enough to say like, if the people are breaking, then the rebuilding is already compromised. And we've missed it. And it's important to course correct. So he names it. And he confronts it. And he calls this project and these people back into a covenant relationship, back into brotherhood and sisterhood, back into shared identity, focusing on the things that unify and usher in love and goodness. And he brings everyone back into the truth that they are not meant to consume one another in the process of rebuilding what God has called them to build together. It's collective. It raises questions, I think, for us that come right into everyday modern communities of faith. Where are people carrying silent strain? If you're reading a room, you can read it. You can see it. Where have we unintentionally created pressure for people instead of refuge and safety and peace? Where have we stopped being willing to notice something because it's too much to address right now, rather than stepping in and confronting it and naming it? And then who knows what God could do when we own where we have fallen. Healthy communities do not wait until everything falls apart to start paying attention. They listen early. They respond so quickly. They tell the truth in love while there's still time to repair it. And Nehemiah shows us that repair is possible. It's the gospel thread throughout the entire Bible. Not denial. It's not avoidance. It's not sweeping it under the rug. It's not spiritualizing it away. It's not hoping. It is simply pure repentance that fosters a doorway for real restoration, real changes in practice and behavior, and the people begin to feel it. And then we move into chapter 6. Because if chapter 5 shows us the internal brokenness inside the community, chapter 6 shows us something just as subtle and just as dangerous. It shows us distraction that's dressed up as opportunity. Now, you would think that after injustice is addressed and the people feel heard and they feel seen and they feel valued and they feel cared for and the burden is lifting, and you just assume, right, that it would just get a little easier. I keep thinking that when I read the Bible. I keep thinking we're going to get to this place where it gets easier. I was talking to somebody this morning in the lobby, and we were talking about how sort of when the waves are crashing over you and they just keep coming and you feel like you're drowning and you just keep waiting for a break in the storm, or a lifeboat to come by, or anything, because you're being faithful in the middle of what God's called you to do. But nope, here comes another wave, and you're just like, wow. And this is a part of the story for me where I'm reading it thinking surely, this is some amazing, powerful work that happens in restoration in chapter 5. So surely we're going to have let's get a hot minute to breathe, like a little respite. But what Nehemiah shows us is that when you have internal issues and they are confronted, the external pressure doesn't stop. It actually just starts to change form. And so listen to how chapter 6 begins. It says, Sanballat and Geshem sent to me, saying, "Come, let us meet together." Now, we met Sanballat back in chapter 2 of Nehemiah. I preached on him last week as well. He's a political rival to Nehemiah. And Geshem's new to us, but he's also mentioned earlier in the narrative. He was a regional Arab leader who joined Sanballat and Tobiah in sort of resisting and trying to intimidate Nehemiah to stop this nonsense of rebuilding Jerusalem's walls. And so to me, Geshem represents outside pressure, those voices that are coming from outside the community, beyond the work, trying to derail what God is building clearly inside of it. And so on the surface, this verse sounds reasonable. Come, let us meet together. To me, I read that and think, yay, okay, we're getting somewhere. It sounds collaborative. It sounds like, oh my gosh, we're all coming to the table. We're going to have dialogue. Let's get together. We'll hang, we'll chat, we'll meet. But Nehemiah notices something that I failed to notice when I was reading through this chapter that I think highlights his extraordinary leadership. He recognizes that it's not an invitation. It is an interruption from the work that God has called him to do. And so in this situation, opposition doesn't show up as mockery like it did last week. It's showing up differently this time. We're going to try another tactic. It's showing up as, let's step away from what you're doing right now, and let's give attention to something else. And so it's meant to pull Nehemiah off of assignment. Remember last week we talked about keep digging. That's what Nehemiah is doing. I'm staying on this project. I'm doing what God's called me to do. I'm going to keep digging. And in chapter 6, that keep digging is really threatened. Big time. All of a sudden, how do we get him off the wall? How do we get him to come down? How do we get him to be so distracted that the work sort of stops? And we need something outside to get him out of the way so that this building project ends. This is what's happening in chapter 6. And Nehemiah's response is one of the most important leadership lines, I think, in the entire book. It says this: I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. Not because he's too busy, not because he's unavailable. Nehemiah could hang. He could go grab coffee with the buddies and chat. It's because he's discerning. He is using his wisdom that God has given him. He knows the difference between what is urgent and what is assigned by God. He's keeping his hand on the shovel. He's going to keep digging. He knows that he knows that he knows. This is the way that God wants me to walk. I'm going to walk in it. And so he's discerning about what is inviting him off the wall and what is actually building into the future that God has asked him to help rebuild. Distraction rarely feels like rebellion. It feels like a coffee date that's going to pull you off the wall. It feels like something good pulling you away from something God's already asked you to do. But Nehemiah names it so clearly. He says, I cannot come down. I'm leading this thing. Sorry about it. We'll grab coffee another day. And it's not because his rivals and his enemies are not important. And it's not because it's not important to create pathways for redemption and reconciliation with those outside the wall. There's something very important with regard to leadership, to doing that work. But not every open door is God-given direction. And we might get a lot of open doors. That might be your theology, because I hear it preached to me a lot. When God closes a window, he's going to open a door. I don't know if you experience this in your life, but I experience it in mine all the time. God closes a window and then 19 doors open. And I'm like, hot dang, what is the pathway? There's so much more work to be done. There's work discerning what your assignment is. What is your burden? What is breaking your heart? Where does your time need to be invested? And so here's this thread that's running through both chapters 5 and 6. Internal brokenness will try to weaken the community from within. An external distraction will try to pull the community away from the assignment that God has given them. And faithful leadership will learn to name both those things. Now, I don't know where you are in your relationships, but you can lay this chapter straight over any marriage or any relationship or any partnership that is struggling. If you are so distracted by external behaviors and you're not dealing with patterns within your own dynamic, you're missing it. It is impossible to repair a relationship by focused only on these external things, and you are not doing the work within your community, within your relationship. You have to see what is happening beneath the surface. I think that Nehemiah refuses to normalize injustice. He refuses to come down from what God has asked him to do. He keeps his eye on this goal. If the goal is reconciliation, if the goal is restoration, if it's rebuilding and restoring, focus on the goal, and those pathways will start making themselves known. And I think maybe that's where it lands for us today. Not everything that pressures you is meant to lead you. Not everything that sounds reasonable is aligned with your assignment. And not everything that's calling for your attention demands that kind of interruption for you, because the work is so great and we cannot come down from it. We cannot miss it. So next in the narrative, when distraction doesn't work through invitation, it actually starts to come through accusation. And Sanballat sends an open letter saying, hey, Nehemiah is planning a rebellion against the king. And I think what's really important in the text is how public this moment is. It's not a private conversation anymore. It's literal reputation warfare. This is no longer a like, hey, come have coffee with us so we can kind of chat and just maybe see if we can get on the page. It's hey, we want everyone to know what kind of leader you are. And so we're going to fabricate that you are creating this rebellion. This is a very different kind of pressure for Nehemiah at this juncture. Because some of the hardest opposition to discern is not the kind that blocks your work, it's the kind that tries to redefine your motives and your intentions for doing the work. And so Nehemiah responds again. Per always, because he's a fantastic leader, he does not respond with panic. He does not just respond with these sort of defense spirals. He doesn't respond by over-explaining himself. He says essentially, you guys are making this up. This isn't true. Nobody's going to take any stock in it. Because everybody knows who I am. I'm grounded in who I am and the work that I have been called to do and I'm doing, and he refuses to come down into this nonsense. And then the text shifts again. Now it's not just external leaders, it becomes internal confusion. There's a man named Shemaiah, someone who sounds like he's speaking prophetically and holy. He tries to pull Nehemiah into the temple for safety. He says this, "Hey, let us meet together in the house of God within the temple, and let us close the doors of the temple, for they are coming to kill you. Indeed, tonight they are coming to kill you." But Nehemiah discerns this is fear dressed up as spiritual wisdom, because the goal is the same. Both the internal noise and the external noise are trying to get him off the wall and off assignment. And so Nehemiah names it, and he says, "Then I perceived and saw that God had not sent him at all." This sentence is doing so much work. It's mainly because what Nehemiah is showing us is that discernment is not just about rejecting what is obviously evil. Like, that's noise. That's nonsense. We can call that out. Get out of here. Get out of my marriage. Get out of my relationship. Get out. Super easy to set some healthy boundaries with those things that just are obviously no good. Not a thing. But what Nehemiah is doing is he's learning about recognizing what is subtly misaligned with what God has already said. And then he refuses again. Not because he's fearless, but because he's anchored, grounded. He knows that he knows that he knows what he's meant to do. I just want to pause here and go back. At the beginning of Nehemiah, Nehemiah is burdened for 4 months. Burdened and praying and wrestling and waiting. And during all of that time, God is doing a work within him to create him to be the type of leader that can carry this burden to its completion, and that is what's on display in these chapters. So we cannot forget that it doesn't begin right here in the heartbeat of 5 and 6. It begins back then with what breaks your heart, what is God calling you to do, what is your burden, and have you spent time praying over it? Have you spent time allowing God to form you into the person that can carry out the goal and the mission and the vision that is placed for you? Now, all of this noise, all of this opposition, all of these different layers, accusing character and an invitation to interrupt your work, right? All of it has the same goal, and that's to just get off the wall. That's the goal. We want the wall to stop being built because we benefit from the wall being broken. We need the system to continue to fail people because we benefit from this. But Nehemiah's posture in leadership stays consistent. He says, I'm doing a great work, and I will not come down. And then the text moves to an ending here. Nehemiah 6:15 through 16 says, "So the wall was finished on the 25th day of the month Elul in 52 days. And when all our enemies heard of it, all the nations around us were afraid and fell greatly in their own esteem. For they perceived that this work had been accomplished with the help of God." The bad guys lost their confidence here. The work got finished. In Nehemiah chapter 6, the wall is complete. It's rebuilt. And these guys lost their confidence not because that they were like somehow defeated by military, not because they all of a sudden recognize that the people of God have louder voices. They get intimidated because the work got done. Like the goodness happened. The thing that Nehemiah had set out to do, he did. And I think that's the quiet reversal in this entire story. You know, the Bible loves a good reversal story. The opposition assumed that pressure would stop obedience, that it would thwart the kingdom mission. But obedience outlasted pressure. Keep digging. Put your hand to the plow. And then the final line of chapter 6, it's almost understated. It says, they perceived that this work had been accomplished with the help of our God. This is not politics. There's no political genius happening here. It's not strategic. Nehemiah wasn't just this brilliant, strategic leader. It wasn't Nehemiah's winning personality and fancy sneakers. This isn't the kind of leadership that people were drawn to. They could see something beyond human at work in the midst. There's something that's holding this whole thing together that's not human-led. So let me bring Nehemiah 5 and 6 into our space here this morning. Those chapters are asking us a couple things. Can we tell the difference between burden and breakthrough? Can we tell when something's weighing us down brick by brick by brick? Or when we're actually moving, you just got to move through that. Just get through that speed bump because something good is about to break through. Can we discern when something is pulling us away from what God has already said? Can we stay on assignment without becoming hardened and cynical? And that's not just church. That's not just work. I'm talking your relationships. What is the thing in your relationships, in your friendships, in your partnerships, in your marriages? What is the thing that God has asked of you? Is it to love your person? What is carrying you off task from doing that well? What are you getting distracted by? What's captivating your attention outside the boundaries of what God is trying to rebuild and heal within that space? The thing about all of this is that faithful people don't just build well, they discern well. And sometimes the most spiritual thing that I think you can say is, I cannot come down. I am doing a great work. I cannot get distracted right now. I cannot care about the accusations and the noise. I've got to keep digging. I've got to lean in. This is where I'm meant to be. Not because everything else is unimportant, but because not everything is assigned. And for such a time as this, maybe this is your assignment. And so I think this is where we're going to end today. What are you being invited to come down off the wall for? Is it fear? Is fear inviting you off the wall? Is accusation inviting you off the wall? Is it over responsibility? Is it exhaustion that's disguised as urgency that's asking you to get off assignment, to get distracted by what God is asking you to lean into? And what would it look like? Not to ignore it, but to discern it. Because Nehemiah doesn't survive this story by avoiding pressure. It's in every second of his leadership journey. He survives it by staying anchored into what God has already asked him to do. That calling is what's holding him. And I think that is the invitation for us to become a people who don't just react to what is loud and the fancy new thing and whatever is trying to sway you off of the wall, but remain faithful to what you know that you know that you know. Because the wall still gets built. And we see it come to fruition in chapter 6. And as followers of Jesus, we cannot come down. Would you stand and worship?
I raise a hallelujah in the presence of my enemies. I raise a hallelujah louder than the unbelief. I raise a hallelujah. My weapon is a melody. I raise a hallelujah. Heaven comes to fight for me. I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar. Up from the ashes, hope will arise. Death is defeated, the King is alive. I raise a hallelujah with everything inside of me. I raise a hallelujah. I will watch the darkness flee. I raise a hallelujah in the middle of the mystery. I raise a hallelujah. Fear you lost your hold on me. I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar. Up from the ashes, hope will arise. Death is defeated, the King is alive. Sing a little louder in the presence of my enemies. Sing a little louder, louder than the unbelief. Sing a little louder. My weapon is a melody. Sing a little louder. Heaven comes to fight for me. Sing a little louder. In the presence of my enemies. Sing a little louder. Louder than the unbelief. Sing a little louder. My weapon is a melody. Sing a little louder. Heaven comes to fight for me. Sing a little louder. I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar. Up from the ashes, hope will arise. Death is defeated, the King is alive. I raise a hallelujah.
Awesome. Hey, guess what? It's camp week. Yeah. I'm just going to ask you guys to pray. Pray for our students. They're going to camp. Pray for our leaders. They're going to camp. And it's so much energy that you output, and you get so much energy back. But it's a gnarly grind if you're hanging out with students and you're talking about Jesus until the wee hours and playing capture the flag and all the nonsense. So please, please, please pray for our youth pastor, Ashlyn, as she sort of, guides this ship. Yep. And it's going to be awesome. I know Chloe's going as a counselor. We got some counselors here. I'm going up on Saturday just to kick everyone's butt and dodgeball. You know how we roll. So it's going to be a great time. Please, please be praying for them. Also, we do have prayer up in this corner. If you need prayer this morning, please head on up there. We have a team up there that loves to pray, loves to join you and hold space for what you're working through. And then, hey, if you feel like you really want to give to the work that God is doing here at The Rock financially and in rebuilding our walls here, there's a couple ways that you can do that. They're up on the screen. You're also welcome to come talk to myself or Andy here on the guitar. If you have any questions about finances, how to give financially, where that money is going, we'd love to hold space for those conversations. And I really, as Andy always says, like you guys. And I hope you have a fantastic Father's Day. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.